And this is not only about media. Of course, media plays the most important role in projecting this type of communicative power. And I know that there is a debate on Georgia since 2012. The Georgian government kind of opened the space for Russian TV channels, and what Georgia received in kind of back is very clear, focusing on this anti-Western, anti-European propaganda masterminded by the Kremlin. This is also about think tanks. It's not only media. This is also about think tanks and the way how they formulate this communicative agenda. When I was preparing for this speech, I just came across one article in one of English language newspapers, English language journals, published by a group of people from Moscow, whose names might be well known here in Georgia. And look how many either direct lines or false statements you can find in literally 5 or 6 pages. I'll just give you a very brief account on that. The West is weakening Georgia. For the European Union Association Agreement marked the line between Europe and Georgia instead of integration. Since the late 1980s, Georgian foreign policy has been based on colliding the West and Russia. Georgia's socialization in the context of contemporary Europe historically took place through cultural borrowing from Russia. I think each of the statements can be easily challenged, but look how many of them you can find just again in one piece. Russia is the only state that can take effective measures in regard to the long-running threats to Georgia's security and dampens Tbilisi's ongoing sense of homelessness. I like this, Tbilisi's homelessness. Russian international strategy sets a good example of running its own course towards a common political and economic future with Europe. The Georgian government imposes new restrictions on the interaction between people of Tbilisi and Batumi. Moscow does not have any effective control over these two breakaway territories. Russia's position regarding separatism is neutral. Georgia supports terrorist groups in the North Caucasus, and Georgia faces a threat to the population. So we have the full spectrum of this propagandistic tool just in one piece. And I also mentioned that within this communicative domain, we definitely need to take a look at the so-called cultural diplomacy that Russia starts learning step by step. And one of the first examples was the concert by Valery Gergiev and the Ninsky Orchestra in Sin Valley in August 2008, which was widely covered in Russian media, in which Sin Valley was compared with Stalingrad. So this is not only about music, classical music, it's about the deeply political meanings that are embedded in this kind of Russian version of cultural diplomacy. Again, Russia just borrowed something from the West and it uses its own meaning in that. And the interesting thing that Gergiev continued this type of cultural diplomacy in Panera in 2016, again in classical music that symbolically associates Russia with the global forces of the good against the forces of the evil. So taking a kind of this aesthetic look at Russian cultural diplomacy, I think it's a good addition to again otherwise predominant political approaches. And speaking about this people-centric as the second track or second dimension, which is very clearly articulated in the concept of the Russian growth. Well, in one academic language, I would call it the biopolitical approach because it's about more people than about territory. Well, I think citizenship policy and expertization definitely is one of the practical tools that Russia uses, and of course religion diplomacy, especially in the case of Georgia. It's not only about religion as such, it's about creating new lines of inclusion and exclusion. It's about trying to send a message that when it comes to values, we are on the same side of the barricade against the West and against Europe. So that's an attempt, that's a political core of that type of policy. And again, my conclusion is that apart from geographical borders, geopolitical borders, lines, on the map and on the maps. We definitely need to take a look at these softer elements of Russian power and probably need more research on that.
Thank you, Professor Makharovich. I think that the religious dimension you mentioned here is probably one of the most dangerous tools in the hands of Russian revisionism, at least towards its politics, in terms of its politics towards Georgia. And there are now lots of thoughts about it, but very few recipes how to deal with this issue because, unfortunately, the problem is serious because the influence of church on Georgian society is quite large, and this particular tool is used quite effectively. Thank you once more, and I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Marek Menkizak, head of the Russian Department, Center for Eastern Studies from Poland. Please.
Thank you. It's always difficult to speak as the last panelist. Nevertheless, I will try to make some synthesis about the subject. What are the boundaries of Russian revisionism? Of course, to put it short, the sky is the limit. But I would like to stress the component of perception and certain mental map, which is important for the policy, because policy is done by people, and people are driven by ambitions, fears, and perceptions. So that will be recurring themes. If we try to boil down the narratives, rhetoric, and some policy actions, Russian leadership, namely this closed circle which runs Russia, it seems that for those people, the reference point and certain golden age is the Soviet Union at the peak of its influence, late 70s. Of course, they are not lunatics, so they do not believe that this can be easily reproduced. It's not possible. But what they strive for is, as the very impolite Russian saying says at the end, "Nostrenitsa надо." You have to strive for it. So this is the reference point. They try, sometimes it happens that they try to conceptualize it a bit. And actually, you've mentioned some of these. You mentioned Ruski Mir, you mentioned Russian world, which is important to stress. It's not ethnic, and it goes beyond geography. So this is a spiritual community, which is in fact global, and it is about both the Soviet and Russian Empire as a territorial entity, but it's also about the global outreach of the Russian Empire and especially the Soviet Union. Also, it happened that Putin himself used several times the idea of Greater Russia. Greater Russia meaning some value geographical space, a natural space in which the Russian statehood has been evolved, as he says, in the late 18th century, meaning, of course, the Russian Empire. But what is important is how this thinking is put into a strategy, a kind of strategy. This strategy for broader Europe is based on obvious kind of thinking that the post-Cold War order has been imposed on Russia, or at least the West has used weakness of Russia, the temporary weakness of Russia, to create certain order, which is unjust and which is unacceptable for Russia. So the premise is that the current order, the current political geopolitical order is temporary. It cannot hold, and Russia will want to undo this order. And there are these four, to my mind, the four major strategic goals, which are all the same. These are vague here, these are but still very consistent. So to regain the strategic control of the post-Soviet area, with temporary exception of Baltic states. To create a buffer zone in Central Europe, security buffer zone. To minimize or the maximum I would be to annihilate the US presence and influence in Europe, and consequentially to build maximize Russian presence in Europe. And those goals are interrelated. They actually goes in whole set. The good news is that none of the above mentioned goals have been achieved. And Russian policy in terms of kind of a reality check on all accounts, these, according to these four lines, is a failure in general. Okay, we can of course discuss the nuances. There are some very limited successes, let's say, but in general, the most ambitious elements of these goals hasn't been achieved. And even there was a backlash, which the Russian aggressive policy produced a backlash, which eventually prevented Russia in developing and achieving success in those goals. But the bad news, I believe, is none of these goals has been abandoned. And this boils down to the mental map. This boils down to the problem of perception. So the problem is that Russia has not learned the lesson, or to learn the lesson different way than we would like to Russia to learn. Meaning that Russia believes achieving those goals will be more difficult and will take more time than it used to think. And that it's possibly failed because we haven't tried hard enough. This is the lesson, which Russia seems to be taking out of that. What is the perspective? We have blurred lines between defensive and offensive, and there is no difference. In fact, the paradox is that on one hand, Russian ruling circle feels extremely vulnerable. There is fear. First of all, this is the fear of losing power, the fear of failure and fall of the system, which is there, it's sometimes that it's very irrational fear, but it's there. So Russia feels internally extremely vulnerable. By Russia, I mean, of course, this close circle of people. Russia also feels endangered by the advance of the West and the whole course of the events, including so-called cold revolutions, Arab Spring, protests in Russia, are just believed to be a CIA special operation, which were meant to destabilize Russia and to fulfill the mythical Brzezinski plan, which goes in three parts. One is encircle, second is weaken, and the third is destroy, fragment Russia. So this is the kind of mental state of the Russian leadership. So in their perception, paradoxically, their aggressive policy is defense. So they're offensive, they're aggressive because they believe they're defending what's defending himself, defending Russia, and defending what belongs to Russia by law of nature and history. Then this did create the problem. The other side of the coin is that there is this strong belief that the West is in demise, that the West is in deep multi-level and multi-layer crisis, an economic, political, social, ideological, and moral crisis of the West. So basically, the EU is collapsing. United States is in deep internal crisis, and the Trump win is actually an exemplification of this crisis. So actually, future does not belong to the West. Future belongs to non-West, as Lavrov has bluntly said recently. And this is true belief, it's not propaganda. There is a clear belief that the history, the trend is now on, maybe not on the Russian side, because there is this race to the bottom, the belief that there is a crisis in Russia which is long-term, which endangers the system, but on the other hand, there's this crisis in the West which is possibly bigger and faster, and therefore there is this window of opportunity which Russia would like to see. And Putin's policy is, despite some appearances, it is an opportunistic policy. This is an aggressive policy to seize the day, to seize the opportunity, to attack when somebody is not ready to defend, to push as far as it is possible, as far as we don't resist enough. And the Georgian war and even more the Ukrainian war suggests that the resistance, internal resistance, is really something which can influence the Russian policies. So there are cost and benefit calculations all the time. These are not mad policy. These are very calculated moves from Russia. Russia is at war with the West. Does not means that Russia is not ready to engage in trade, in communication, in some cooperation, especially in bilateral footing. But this is a war which is a war exactly about the changing the rules, the changing the system, the changing the order which Russia cannot. Okay, I will stop.
Thank you very much, Mr. Menkizak. I think that the main conclusion which comes out from your speech is that the permanent desire of permanent expansion is sort of the nature of this country, even not always rational, but in part many times irrational one. And I'm afraid that I would agree with you on big part, if that is the conclusion. Now, unfortunately, as I warned you, the time for our discussion is not very big, but let's anyway try to touch the most interesting question that might come out from this discussion or presentations. And we have a number of them on our screen. Well, I would start with this second one from the top, and would combine it with my own, which is about the same nature. How Russia is planning to stop development of transportation corridor to Azerbaijan and Georgia, how it will impact China's Silk Road Belt project. I would address this question to you, Ambassador Bebeshidze. What is your view on this is it really the case that Russia wants to stop this development? And if yes, how and why? And I would touch the issue of another, that's so to say, corridor, which is time by time is mentioned by mainly Russians and also Armenian officials, which regards to issue of restoration of railway, Caucasus, Southern Caucasus Railway, which crosses, as you all know, occupied territory in Abkhazia as well. And many, the main argument, one of the main arguments usually is that this railway connection is badly needed for Armenian economy, but of course we would somehow realize that this potential dangerous development should have its own very important military dimension as well. So let's start with and then I will give the floor to David.
Answering to the question, the second question.
Yes.
The transport corridor, which does not consist only with pipelines, but also traditional ways of transportation. This began to come into being in the 90s. When after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Georgia and South Caucasus, from one time at the periphery of the huge empire, became a natural bridge between the South-East Central Asia and Turkey and Europe. And since then, Russia was really very actively trying to impede any project which would work towards this end, making the South Caucasus a natural bridge for transportation. And in those times, Russia would use any means of sabotage or any means of hindering these projects, including masterminding political instabilities in Georgia, in Azerbaijan, and so on and so forth. But luckily, the corridor, transport corridor, in all its main elements, now is already put in place. It works, and it provides competition for Russian exports of hydrocarbons from or through Russian territory to the west. But I would not think that these days Russia tries to cut these flows of different commodities through Georgia and Azerbaijan, or otherwise lobbying poverty or poverty. Of course, Russia tries to use its competitive corridors which run through Russian territory, to North Caucasus or even to the north, and tries to attract as much commodities as possible to their corridors. This is a competition. The other competitive corridor runs to the south, plus to Iran and Turkey. So this is a normal state of affairs. I personally, I don't see any activities on the part of Russia otherwise to block the flows of commodities to east-west or west-east direction flows of commodities. And the second part of this question is how it fits to the China's One Belt, One Road concept. So far, to my understanding, this concept is still in its making, so it still has it's being shaped and again, to my knowledge, this concept does not really go against national interests or other concepts of any stakeholders in the region, being that Russia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, or Turkey. So I haven't read or haven't seen any critical statement or analysis in the realm of these concepts or one belt, one road, countering someone's national interests. So that leads me to the conclusion that Russian, I mean, Chinese, this concept, which still has to become policy and then and a whole set of different projects, it's something which is not relevant to the existing settings and facts and process of transporting goods and commodities through South Caucasus. I think for Georgia, this is an opportunity. For Armenia, for Azerbaijan, for Turkey, for everyone. It's because China is a huge both exporter and potential importer as well. But what one should be careful about is that if and when we'll be facing more specific, more concrete elements, components of this concept, one belt, one road, that the regulations, the norms, the standards are compliant to the existing Western standards of accountability, transparency, good governance, and so on and so forth. That this is something which would fit into the existing standards according to which we've been building our transport and transit potential and transit corridor with our city.
David, please. Thank you. What was not quite lawful when it was in the other couple of days ago about the opening of the railway. First point, Lavrov said that it's in the interest of Armenia or Armenian colleagues asking for that. I can say that there are very serious economy researchers in Armenia that the opening of that railway, of course, it will be good for Armenian economy, but it will not be a revolution. It will not make a revolution in Armenia. Couple of percent only, couple of percent. So I think, first of all, Russia did it. Why? They want to have a railway communication, first of all, to Russian military base in Armenia. First of all. And of course, it's, this railway is tying more or less Georgia to Russia anyway. First of all, the military dimension of that railway. Of course, the decision is up to Georgians, but from my point of view, I don't see any reason for Georgia joining this railway. Economically, it's in Turkey's interest. Turkey-Russia interest. No Turkey-Russia economic interest. And now, after the Kars Tbilisi railway, which will be ready this year, it will be a railway communication between Turkey and Russia. So, my request to Lavrov, push your policy, but don't try to sell it to Armenians. If you allow about the other point also, there are two questions very briefly about how will it change the South Caucasus, how will, after referendum in Turkey, what changes will be in South Caucasus? I don't think that will be any changes, because what's happening in Turkey, what was de facto in Turkey, Of course, my country, I think most other countries would like to see stagnant, predictable Turkey. Let's hope that Turkey foreign policy will be more predictable. It's another topic, Turkey-Russia relations. What will be, let's see. And the last point about the double standards. Also, when I was mentioned about double standards or multi-standards, foreign health policy cannot exist without multi-standards. In other cases, it's not a foreign policy, it's a law. You can bring a lot of examples. Not from our region. I'll start from my country. Armenia is supporting the Karabakh independence, but Armenia never will recognize the independence of Abkhazia or its Invaldi region as a result of referendum Crimea. Turkey and Azerbaijan. They are for Azerbaijan territorial integrity, but their position to Cyprus quite different. So, multi-standard is the base of foreign policy. It cannot exist. So that's our question, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, try to brief three issues. So about the corridor, I fully concur that there's no reason Russia would like to block the corridor. And this boils down not to Russia's policy towards the South Caucasus, it boils down to Russia's policy to China. And the Russia's policy vis-à-vis China is engagement. Russia is afraid of China, Russia is concerned with the rise of China, and because of that, Russia is not going to do anything which may enrage China and engage China. So the way the Russians do it is to, they know they cannot stop the development of One Belt One Road. They just want to be as much useful and as much a part of the concept to their benefit, rather than try unsuccessfully to block it. The second point is about Kosovo and Crimea. Well, we often says, and that is generally true, that Russia tries to imitate, Russia tries to replicate and imitate what the West has done. The problem is that what Russia does and how Russia does is usually a caricature of the Western policy. And of course, there is no time to dwell on the issue of Kosovo, which is a controversial issue. It still is a controversial issue. But you have to remember that there was real a massive human disaster in Kosovo. There were 800,000 refugees physically located out of Kosovo before the bombardment started. That was completely different. There is no real danger for the Russians in Crimea. Nobody can prove that. Secondly, there was a long process of UN-led discussion and negotiations about the future of Kosovo. None of that was happened in Crimea. That was simply a political military decision, which was formally just acknowledged by a falsified election, the referendum, in Crimea. So the decision about the referendum was made without quorum, which we have clear reports on that, and the results were falsified. And third issue is the issue of, to me, the question of sources. Obviously, well, nobody of us can read Putin's mind. I'm not the exception. So what I'm based is the mix of numerous statements, speeches, rhetorics, thousands of that, also documents, proposals, and policy actions, and the interpretation of that through my 25 years research in Russia. And it is, I would like to stress that we often forget, we think that there's something new in Russian proposals, and we sometimes forget that it has already been done. So actually, in various proposals, Russians keep repeating the same ideas, the same concepts. They were repackaging the same concepts and ideas for many years before. That was the same with the so-called Medvedev security treaty, European security treaty proposal. Take a look at the Russian proposals of the European Security Charter. Take a look at Kozyrev, European comprehensive European security concept. These are the same ideas. You can say that about many Russian initiatives. And if you really dig deep, you can find that there are Soviet initiatives, actually, which are actually leading to the same result, to the same conceptual frameworks, like used to be during the Soviet diplomacy. So, really, it's sometimes useful to remind ourselves about the previous, not far distant history.
And so I will be very brief concerning this parallel between Crimea and Kosovo, which I think are very appropriate. Well, I would believe in any chances for this analogy. If, for example, one day we learn that Albania unilaterally annexed Kosovo is not humanitarian catastrophe. In that case, okay, some parallels could have been done, but that's beyond my imagination. So I don't think that's it's serious. And one more point concerning what Marek mentioned on the Russian perception of the terminal weakness of the West, as seen from the position of the dominant discourse in Russia. I think it's exactly at this point that Russian discourse exposes its very controversial and very dislocated character, because this argument, in fact, devoids the fear of the West as a destructor of Russia. So, on the one hand, yes, the West is intentionally portrayed as a political community / civilization in decay, A, and B, it's exactly this political community civilization in decay that ultimately can destroy Russia unless we mobilize all of our resources. So I do see a very harsh tension between these two arguments that do not sit that easily, in my view, together.
We have just the possibility for just maybe one, at least two questions from audience.
Thank you very much. I'm going to Maria. My question is about the West. We talk a lot about the Russian revisionism. Is there any implemented strategy from the West against the Russian revisionism? And is there any leadership in order to deter Russian revisionism?
And the second?
At moment, it's possible. My comment, sure. My comment to Shantazania. Of course, there is a reason Armenia is not favored as Azerbaijan or Armenia. But if we have to choose the Nagorno-Karabakh, today Armenia is the part of the regional project, as the Azerbaijan, Turkey, Georgia, Belarus. Secondly, you mentioned that Azerbaijan raising its military budget for areas. Azerbaijan rising, then we could use that to another interesting statistic. Last 10 years, Azerbaijan raised, Azerbaijan spent more than trying to build in the last 20 minutes. Why? Because of occupation of the territory. Yes, they're spending a lot of money, but if we want a caravan movie, we should, we can spend this money for Azerbaijans and Armenian territory, and Azerbaijan citizens, Armenian citizens, that's living in the Nagorno-Karabakh. Thank you very much.
Who is going to answer about the Western leadership? I think we going forward with that. How it is addressed?
I can speak only for myself. I can say for my country, not to mention the West. Well, my problem is that I have some consistent approach. I believe we need a smart containment policy towards Russia, which of course does not repeat the old containment because there is different workaround. It should be proactive and not purely defensive. Of course, what we always say is resilient build. Of course, we need to always develop resilience, internal resilience, because actually what Russia is the most dangerous is that Russia uses really existing problems, which within our countries, which are not products of the Russian policy, which are actually homemade, but Russia is using that existing problems for their purposes, and this is danger. So the way how we will deal with our own problems will actually influence Russia. This is our policy towards Russia. This is about the crises in the West. This is about some serious problems in neighborhood, including broader Europe, including Georgia. So there are what Russians are trying to prey upon are the remnants of the post-Soviet systems. So all these issues of corruption, the weaknesses of government and administration, the oligarchy and its role in politics, personal links, personal stories, and so on. These are the base actually for Russian influence and for Russian active negative policies. So the only way actually to defend against Russia is actually to destroy the drums on which Russia can play with, actually. And towards Russia, I believe it needs to be more proactive policy in the sense that not only channels of communication and political dialogue with the Russian leadership, which is obviously a mantra which always is repeated, but more engagement towards direct engagement towards Russian society, including in media and information space. This is important. Russian speaking, Russian language, TV channels, radio station, internet portals, activity of the Russian diaspora abroad, which could be used positively for a concerted approach towards Russian society, which is not doomed. I do not believe Russia is doomed, and I'm slightly skeptical about assessing the numbers of support for Putin according to the public opinion polls in Russia. This will disappear whenever Putin will become fallen, actually. It may change drastically, very fastly, but my belief is that we should not really cross the possibility that Russia will someday become different country. I'm not. It is long term. course. It's not maybe very positive in the short and medium term, but in the long term, I believe it is possible, and we should strive for it. So not only push back against Russia, not only resist, but also be more offensive towards Russia itself. More blunt, more unpredictable sometimes towards Russia would be helpful.
Just one short addition to that. I think the only visible policy of the West is just raising the price for misconduct. It's something like more for more, but in a completely different sense. The more you misbehave, the more sanctions you get.
On behalf of audience, I would like to thank very much all members of our question. We have unfortunately
No, but we had
exceeded all time.
direct question.
I think it was a common question.
It was a question. No, please. 1 minute.
One minute.
It's not about question.
Thank you very much for that question. First of all, fact. What is today's proposals from co-chairs to Armenian Plus project? First of all, initiative on frontline, which is denied by Azerbaijan. The second point, Azerbaijan is speaking only about the territories, but nothing about the population. For us, it's a people of Azerbaijan, unfortunately, it's territories. I will go forward. Azerbaijan all the time is speaking about the 4 UN National Security Council resolutions. Please read that resolutions.
We have written.
This, I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know. This so-called
No, I
occupation.
have made a comment. I have no question.
Excuse me, it's statement I need to. I think it is for UN National Security resolutions. There is no demand to Armenia, only a call to Armenia to use
Occupied
No.
territories. Whose
to use
territories?
was Russia. Your style, please, just the authorities. And this occupation is a result what happened. The war which started from Azerbaijan side. This is the reality. Today, Armenia is ready to start drafting peace agreement on basis of matter principle. Azerbaijan is not ready. This is a fact, and thank you very much for your question.
Who's occupied, who's
Thank you very much for all people.
Tak się sobie dobrać tym, że our topic is your vision. Just one question is okay, if you can accept use for example. So you So, we see all those Святая Русь, чистая там духовная скрепа, how do you all those we are talking about Russian armies, not general Russians, cooperative was for those friends. So they are sending their kids to the West for college and for life. They are transferring all those like illicitly or legally acquired funds to Western sending assets, material, connections. They're getting their connections to the West, mostly competing more like China or Muslim world. So, can we see this as a position of to strengthen their position inside the Russian to differentiate Russian legal versus Russian? So they are using all these Western assets, material, to strengthen their policies, stand inside the Russian state, Russian side. Elsewhere, if you are talking that they are as decaying, then why is this? Actually transferring their future.
That's a good point, but I believe that there is a paradox that there is no contradiction. Of course, there is a huge overload of propaganda, and not all the things are really believed by the people. I believe that it's not only propaganda, because they see the opportunities. It does not mean that the states will disappear in Europe. No, the states will stay. Their view is that what is collapsing is liberal order. What is collapsing is our liberal order institutions. What states are people, what states are states, and those people and those states have also private and actually there is no contradiction in Russian people even quite up to the elite liking the good living of the West and enjoying the good living, traveling, shopping, sending kids for study and
Just the
later. But there is no contradiction in despising that in a way or trying to portray that they like this rotten West. There is this anecdote saying that the West is rotting, but the smell is great.
So actually, your point is that this is a
Maybe I would
elite versus elite.
in a sense, yes, that there are partners for this. Actually, what Russians see, what the elite members in Russia see, that they are welcome in this West. They are business partners. They have partners who are selling them stuff, who are accepting their money, who are using this money for different purposes. There are various channels, shallow channels of communication, shallow channels of money transfer, money laundering. There are channels for corruption, and they believe that this is the way, this is how hypocritical the West is, pronouncing their great values and ideas, and actually being corrupt by themselves, by Russia. So it actually reinforces. So this private benefit element does not contribute the idea of Western corruption. It actually reinforces that. There is no contradiction because yes,
you're telling in great words, you're so principled when you issue statements condemning us or your policy papers. But on the other hand, you're doing business also as a private person. You're proposing to us, you're coming to us and proposing businesses. Your banks are financing us.
Yeah, sure, you're condemning, but still
Yes,
inviting.
you're
such
ready,
a table.
you're rushing to work such an impression.
Yeah, good point. Thank you very much. It was.
Dziękuję, Karmen. Bardzo pan zna pan ma chciałbym czytać pana rzeczy. Ja nie mam ze sobą, ale przeczytę.
Co?
Jak to jest mam co pan myśli a ja od na pytanie
Yes.
Well, a lot of the hardest was changing.
Okay, so maybe I've lost this.
Let's do it again. Okay. Is it my voice?
Let's do it again.
What are we talking about?
Safety.
Same thing. In other words, you go first and then I'll go. Okay, whatever. So I'm going to talk about what I talked about yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go for 2 minutes instead of 1.
Yeah. Yeah, you just stand there and
Stop.
sorry? Yes.
Ukrainian Prism represents the finest institution in all of Kiev, leading the way, blah, blah, blah. Testing 1, 2, 3. Leading, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not wrong. My name is Olga. Okay, right?
Yes. So the government of conflict, and are there prospects for its resolutions in the nearest future, and do you see any changes recently?
Well, unfortunately, this year's annual security conference here in Tbilisi, Georgia, revealed that yet again we are simply moving farther away from the peaceful resolution of many frozen conflicts, most notably the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. In fact, when we look back at the one-year anniversary of the most serious fighting over Nagorno-Karabakh, last April 2016, we see that there's only an increased escalation of the risk of renewed hostilities and fighting. And in many ways, this is a challenge for European security, because this particular conflict is significant in its potential for drawing in, enforcing, or compelling the reaction of much larger regional powers, like Russia, Turkey, as well as Iran. What this necessitates is much greater scrutiny and a doubling down of diplomacy, reinvesting and reiterating the need for greater diplomatic initiatives in the wake of an escalation in the military situation. In other words, what we see is a renewed threat to broader regional instability and security.
Great. That is 1.5.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's always better to be a little short than too
Right.
much, but sorry.
That is right. Thank you.
Okay, boss, your turn.
Let's move on to outwards.
Did you eat?
Okay.
Did you bring something?
We'll catch up then.
Okay, your turn. What's your vote?
Bilateral and multilateral partnership.
О, супер, спасибо. Вот где-то здесь. Здесь можно поставить. Да, чтобы не... Отлично. И столик маленький, да, какой-то можно есть там, чтобы не поставить? Книги нам надо положить. Да? Все, давайте положим. Можно даже даже ради государства у вас будут книги здесь презентовать людям, так что я даже не знаю, как.
Микрофон тоже нужен?
Да, говорить. По-моему, я даже перевела текст. А, это ты больше будет, 20, да? То же самое делает республиканский. Хорошо, все, видишь, как.
We need that microphone, yes.
Yeah. Great. This one.
Thanks. I must change this.
That's it.
Yeah, there is going to be stuff.
Olmadan iyi sertifikatı tam da bir kutu var. Doktor bir yere kadar çok junctions. Geologists in the area of workings at secrets and junctions. Cells and within. Academics and students. I'm sure the election will be Para volver a los sociales.
Hanno qui telefoni, hanno. Not the entry. Hanno BNB Manchester Bishop. Wiem, to ma 60. Ano, wiem gdzieś, a drugie, a posledné. To wiem o tom. A posledné je. Dobre, to netreba, dobre. To už mám vybavené. Dobre, ďakujem, že som zavolal, ale to už mám vyriešené. Áno. Alebo vieš čo, kedy môžem tam aj hej, áno, nemusíš posielať, ale nechaj. Dobre, teraz som v práci, vieš, nemôžem to Nie. Áno, ale Áno, zároveň to je to. Maciej, jedna vec, na webie strony pre panoramę no to czy by sa mohli spraviť, že tie application z panorama, tak tu by mohlo byť to. Alebo proste nie, jak niekto manifestačný na mňa je na začiatku da Facebook na vrchnom spolu Bielownictwo teraz.
I'm sorry, are there some people are taking your wife around? I don't know. I said it's only for demonstration. Some people are just taking it. So tell them that it's not. Yeah,
Hi, nice to meet you. Yes, I'm curious. You want to be last? Yeah, why not? Yes, yes. I wanted to ask you about that. Many people think that connection to the job Yes, hi everyone.
I hope you enjoy your lunch and we're gonna get started. Please take your seats.
Okay. So you will choose what you consider, and then
Okay, I will also ask the speakers and the moderator from the next panel to take your seats as well. And what we are going to do now is we'd like to present you some of our flagship applications, our partner Ukrainian Prison and Stratford. Maybe many of you are aware that one of the flagship applications our previous think tank set up now of Stratford is Panorama. The full name is Panorama Global Security Environment. Basically, the goal of the application is to present a Central European perspective of the global security environment. So
includes chapters, of course, mainly about European transatlantic security, European Eastern Partnership regions. There are also chapters about more outlying regions, such as East Asia, even Africa, Latin America, and so on. What I'd like to emphasize is that the full text of this year's panorama and soon all the previous panorama is available on Stratpol webpage. So all of you are invited to check it and use it in your research and so on. Should be easily found there on the webpage. One more thing, we just issued a new call panorama. This is the tradition of panorama is more than 10 years. So the project really became something which we are very proud of, similar to this forum. And the new call for Panorama 2017 is on. You can find it on our Facebook. And we'll be very happy if some of you decide to participate and contribute to the chapter in the next year edition. If you have any more questions, I'll be very happy to answer over here after the panel. You can have a look how it looks in the real world. And now the floor is more for the friends.
Thank you, Richard, and to present our publication. Just a couple of minutes from my side. The Ukrainian Prison is the Foreign Policy Council, an independent think tank which was created in 2015, just on the wave of revolutionary dignity and this rise of civil society activity in our country. So basically, we are a network think tank which are dealing with wide range of foreign policy issues in Ukraine. We want to see a picture and assess of the performance in foreign policy from Latin America to China and Japan, for example. So basically, what we do in this publication, which is also displayed on this table, is we want to assess or to grade performance of Ukrainian foreign policy activities, either MFA or parliament, how they do in different directions. We have 5 different indicators you can find in methodology just at the beginning of this publication. We have similar maybe approaches with some ideas of ECTR because we consulted with them about methodology because methodology is the core of our publication. And we want to do it on critical level each year just to see the dynamics. And it may be of interest to you in a couple of aspects. For example, methodology, we can try to make something in common prevent the regions in partnership. The same approach. And second, you can find here maybe different publications about bilateral track of Ukraine with different countries. With Georgia, with Turkey, with Slovakia. So basically, I encourage you to take use of this publication. Thank you very much.
Hello. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be invited here and to speak about such an important topic as we have. As you may be seen, the topic is cybersecurity, propaganda, and anti-propaganda. It's not coincidence we put all this stuff together because it's very well connected. And my aim is not to only make some analysis or something like that, but even more because I think we already know what's going on and we just need to take some action, not to just watch what's happening, but to make some measures and to be active. So maybe that would be great space for talking about some, because many countries representatives who are there already started with many stuff. Even in Slovakia, we started with some things I will talk later about. So how to deal with that? I have in the beginning a very short, a few slides I would like to share with you. We have impression what are we going to talk and what some maybe funny, some maybe serious examples of the world we are now facing. So this is the first one. Okay, we will begin to talk about our cybersecurity
And there is a good example that if you are not careful and you click on something which is dangerous, then you can be in trouble. And even you can put your country in big trouble. And for example, Czech President Miloš is well known as a pro-Russian troll or something. Even he was a victim of this kind of stuff. Because cybersecurity experts found on his computer in the Prague castle a lot of porn materials. And when they tried to find out how it happened, the story was very funny because official explanation was that Miloš Zeman every night he checks his name in the Google and what they are writing about him. And he, of course, many strange sites writing good stuff about him. So he checked this, he goes on a very strange site, he clicks on something, and then something was happening to his computer, and some porn was discovered on there. So please be very careful, because this method, or what he was victim, is calling, everybody probably know, it's phishing. It's very simple tool for hackers to get inside the computer, and with great implications. Because, for example, take some American elections, how the NCA has been attacked. It was by the same method. The high-ranking guy in the Democratic Party opened email, which looked pretty serious, but it was fake. He clicked on something, and then immediately the hackers get inside. They took all the devices, and with the help of WikiLeaks, they opened debate and little bit switch election campaign in favor of Donald Trump. So please be careful, and I will do my first question for Victor Pajos from Prague. He's from an organization which has a funny shortcut NSA, but he's not from NSA, he's from National Cybersecurity Center from Prague. And I would like to ask him that for example, you taking seriously this do you have some measures personally to be safe, and are your government taking this seriously?
Yeah, thank you for your question, and thank you for having me. Just to explain the acronym NSA, the National Cybersecurity Center that I am part of is under National Security Authority of the Czech Republic. So we have this NSA acronym, but we always add CZ to it so that people talk to us actually on events like this. Yes, we obviously take this threat very seriously, and looking at the name of this panel, information security, I would like to have like this short opening statement. And the main message is that information security is just one. It is indivisible, and it has both technical and propagandist part. Now, often in Western, conceptually, in Western theory, these two are very heavily divided. You have the technical cybersecurity, there will be all the firewalls and intrusion protection systems and malware analysis and all the technical gibberish. And then you have the propagandist part. Now, the line is useful, but sometimes it hinders the execution of effective measures in this field. Now, I prefer a hybrid approach, a holistic approach to information security. That, for example, although Russia has Russian theory of information warfare, of information security, informaционная безопасность, I think it's advanced and it's superior to this compartmentalized approach. That's why I really like the name of this panel. If you look at your programs, it says how to secure sensitive data and do proactive communication to tackle disinformation at the same time. I will later say what I think states, strategic companies, and other strategic organizations should do in this field. Now, first of all, two examples, and I will now relate to the things that we discussed here before, and I will show in these examples how the two parts of information security, the technical and the propagandist, are indivisible. Georgia, 2008, before the Russian attack on Georgia began, about a week later, a week before, began heavy DDoS pounding of your service. So, denial of service attack, the servers were flooded with legitimate
requests, and Georgia was not able to put the message through to the population, to the wider foreign public. And the DDoS attack was so heavy that Georgia had to move the content on a different infrastructure. It was actually moved to Blogspot. By the way, till now, till today, you can have a look at the page of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Georgia on Google's Blogspot. And that is a huge propagandist impact. We have a technical thing at the beginning, but it has a propagandist outcome. The second example, again, I will relate things that were already said here before, is Ukraine, 2015. Advanced Persistent Group, Advanced Persistent Threat Group, Sendor, that is linked to Russia, placed malware in energy sector of Ukraine, and over 200,000 people remain without electricity. Now, again, this is a huge propagandist token that can be used in the media and in the narrative about the conflict and about the inability of the government to take care of its own people. Now, what should we do about it? I think looking at the two parts of information security, the technical and the propagandist, I will point out three priorities for each. They are half technical and half awareness and raising awareness, because there is a huge thing. In the technical realm, I think the most important thing is to teach ICT administrators, like network administrators of strategic industries, of ministries, how to handle threats in their network. Teach them good practice of whitelisting application, firewalls, anti-DDoS technologies, and all that stuff that is usually boring to regular people that are not but it's crucial in defending your strategic data. Second, so that will be teaching the ICT guys how to guard well, safeguard well their network, and obviously get their finance to do that. Second is to teach regular users of that network how to behave. Most of very advanced APT attacks begin with phishing. It was already said, phishing is still a major vector of attack. And when you teach users, to inspect emails, to watch their click, so to say, not to follow every link they receive, it's a huge improvement and makes the vector of attack smaller. And the third priority, according to me, in the technical realm would be to help admins strategic infrastructure to handle cyber incidents. It is what we do at the National Cybersecurity Center. By the way, we also live that division in technical and strategic and propaganda thing. We have two main departments. One would be the strategy and policy unit that I'm a member of, and the second is the Center of Emergency Response Team. These are the technical ICT experts that handle cyber incidents and are on the phone at disposal for the admins of strategic infrastructure. That is, I think, very important. If you have a mystery, if you have a strategic company, if you have a think tank, and there is a guy that safeguards the information and he doesn't know what to do, you should have a number to call and a guy he knows personally, if possible, in order to have some advice. That will be technical realm. Propaganda realm, again, three things, and here I would begin with awareness. The most important thing, I think, is to raise awareness among the general public. What the Finnish way is to say, Finland has a very good results in this field because they have educated people that do not believe everything that is online, and that's the way. It's the hard way to walk. But I think raising awareness in the schools. I see a big role of NGOs in this field. This is the way to go. We will not counter and we will not win over online propaganda with technical means. It has to be said. If we do not sacrifice our freedom of speech, and we are not willing to do that, we have to simply educate people. Second priority in propaganda realm would be to understand how propaganda is done on a technical level. I am an independent student of propaganda and of the means how to spread true or fake message in the social media. We have some incredible tools that are online that you can buy, or rent for a couple of dollars per month that allows you to
raid thousands of fake accounts that will spread your message. So we have to understand how that is done in order to counter it. And the third priority and the propaganda realm for me would be to raise awareness among decision makers, but that I think is pretty much covered and it is being done also here with this event. So this might include my beginning to the debate, and I look forward for your questions.
Thanks very much, Victor. Here's another slide, something much more serious. Probably you have seen today the news from Paris, where there was yesterday evening attack and police guy died. But probably you haven't read the story about Ukraine that 2 soldiers were killed last night in Caucasus city. So there is a war in Ukraine, more than 10,000 people died there, but nobody's mostly speaking and talking about that. So this is one of the biggest challenges we face, that there is a real war, but it's not recognized as a war by mainstream media, by politicians, and it's really very good, very effective way of Russian denial. That they always, if something happened, they always say no, it's true, it's fake, and they are pretty successful. I have my personal experience. What I would like to explain, these 2 pictures, I have taken in Avdiivka when I was there a few months ago. City was under constant shelling from the separatist side, and it was even some bombs were going down to the urban area. So, for example, I was in one street, and across the streets, the bomb destroyed this flat. As you can see from outside and inside, what was happened, that 2 flats were completely destroyed. And I was there 3 days, and I've seen like I think 3 destroyed attacks which destroyed flats, and one man died. But what was most shocking, that when I was asking local people about that, what's going on, because everybody of us were seeing from which direction the rockets are coming from the south. Avdiivka, is now the hottest spot in Donbass because it's very close to Donetsk. You almost see Donetsk from Avdiivka. So, but even that, you see from the south rockets, many people there, if you talk with them in Avdiivka, they don't believe they're nice, they really rather Russian community. So they were seriously saying to me that it was, for example, the sector who bombed them. Even if it's nonsense, because in the center of the Avdiivka there is the base of private sector, so why they would bomb themselves? Even Ukrainian soldiers are based in the center of the town, so it's completely nonsense. But people, they who are dependent on Russian TV, they believe that. It's for me, it's the strongest propaganda that you can see, because if you're living somewhere, you can see something, and you really do not believe reality that you believe is fake. It's pretty, for me, unbelievable, if it's possible. And yes, if it's possible, it's happening. Second slide, please. Propaganda, Russian propaganda has many tools, many ways. For example, they use text messages for the soldiers who are on the front line. They receive SMS even in Ukrainian language. With a very offensive way, so they try to intimidate them, to feel them weak. So it's also psychological. It's not very important, but it's also part of the information war. And the third part, please. We can talk a lot about the other side, but what my experience from Donbass is that is Ukrainian government doing a lot? Is it doing enough to persecute people living there? They are doing what they can. Because my feeling is that not. That if you just say that Russians are bad, they are Russians, and then you just prove that they are making fake news, it's good. We have to do this, but it's not enough. We have to show goodwill to these people, because then if you will not build trust, these people there, or the people there, the citizens of Donbass, they are quite a little bit, I don't want to be offended, but they are a little bit Soviet-minded people, for example, because they used for this environment, they never think something else, So they used to think in this ideology, and so they need very approach that, for example, I think here, the government in Kiev has one advantage in comparison with Abkhazia in Georgia, that still part of Donbass is in the hands of Ukrainian army and with Ukrainian officials. So I would expect that the Ukrainian government would try much more improved development, because what people really care, it's not about fake news or about Russian TV, they care about their personal lives. So and if they see that this damaging situation in Donbass is going to be a little bit better because of the efforts of the Ukrainian army or Ukrainian officials to do that. This space on the building, it's one of the citizens of Avdiivka. It's now the most known face of Avdiivka. It's a Ukrainian, it's a teacher of Ukrainian language. And it was also a good example that how you can pop out something personal and you may even get attention of the world media. It was made by one Australian artist, and it's very symbolic because this is the last building which is looking at the separatist side, and which was people are not living there anymore because it's so many times it was bombed there. It was very difficult to live there. So that's my question for Taras from Kiev, that you really have a tough challenge, that there is a war in your country, there is a clear enemy, but almost nobody recognizes that. What do you do?
Thank you very much. My name is Taras Mikhailiuk. I'm director of Open Ukraine Foundation. And our foundation for many years was dealing with human security issues, with good governance issues, and recently it had to come to hard security issues, unfortunately. And as our priority was always that any policy should be individual-oriented, and it was so difficult for us to understand how in new situation we should react to new challenges, because here, as I said, we have war. And here we have invasion from Russia, and during war, the rules of behavior, even for civil society, are quite different than in peaceful time. And personally, I don't believe that increasing social welfare of people will help, because propaganda is such an issue that it's very difficult to tackle with. And I believe you will agree with me that even in Western countries, propaganda finds supporters. So people are living in good social conditions. Okay, there are some economic problems, immigration problems, but still majority of people are tended to be affected by propaganda. And here's the main issue, how to tackle this problem. So I would like to provide the Ukrainian view and view from Ukraine on what should we do. Because for me, nothing is clear in this issue. I have such very nice, to my mind, comparison about the story, how Noble Knight should fight barbarian. Because Western world looks at the moment like Noble Knight. It has clear rules. It can fight only with sword, and it has democratic procedures. It cannot break them. And barbarian can use everything, can weaponize everything at sea. And to my mind, in such a condition, Noble Knight is in a losing position. So finally, it has to lose because against weaponizing everything, it has no answers. It can defend for some time, but finally, it has to lose. So I believe that we have to look carefully what the democratic world should do in hybrid warfare, with informational warfare, with propaganda, and weaponizing all problems. Because approaches should be received. I believe that the main problem is the comparing even to Ukraine, because Ukrainians don't understand what their enemy is here. Because Russia invaded Crimea, invaded eastern Ukraine, and constant fights, and every night several soldiers are killed. And we are used to that situation already, so it's normal, 1, 2, that's okay, but 10, 15, that's already not very okay. But to imagine in your country, I believe you cannot imagine such a situation when several people are killed every day, and your people do think that it's okay, it's normal process, civilization here.
We know where our enemy is, and the Western world unfortunately don't. So, one of the things is that Russia is fighting Ukraine against, not against Ukrainians, it's fighting against values, against West, against US, against NATO, EU, against EU. And if you ask ordinary people, they will say, okay, Ukrainians are good, but they are fooled by Western countries because of these values here. So, and we have some different values, and we are fighting for based on Soviet past. I believe here's the main problem that West don't understand, the West doesn't determine that Russia at the present moment is their enemy. Because their aim is targeting the values of Western world. And Western world values is the basis that all these countries are built on. And now you're having warfare like Ukraine has, and they're trying to weaponize money. They're trying to weaponize your extreme left and right political parties. They're trying to weaponize culture. They're trying to weaponize informational sphere and to use propaganda every time they can. And very often Western world relies on democratic mechanisms, that democracy will take care of everything. But it's not the case, I believe, in such circumstances. And the Western countries shouldn't take defensive positions, they should attack somehow, which is allowed by democratic procedures for sure. And I talked to many experts in media, in journalists from US, from Europe, and I don't have a unique view on how the West should tackle propaganda issue. Because somebody says that, okay, whatever happens, but we have to keep to the democratic rules. The other journalists I talk to say that, okay, the universal value is survival. So first we have to survive, and if we don't, so no matter what values we have. Some others say, but propaganda was the case of our policy always. During Cold War, there was democratic world, and then there was totalitarian world, and there was propaganda, fighting propaganda in between. So you had not only to protect yourself, but you had to affect your enemy, that Russian citizens would start to behave in a different way. Yeah? So it's a kind of attacking policy. To what extent, to use this propaganda for democratic forces, I still have no clear idea. But I believe this should be taken in deep discussion in the world. And also, during hybrid warfare, one more important thing is that in traditional warfare, they're fighting two armies. And in principle, for soldiers, there must not be gray color. It must be black and white. Because otherwise your army will be destroyed. It's so distinct that, okay, we are right, but maybe not in 100%. So the next moment you will think, okay, maybe I'm not going to ready to die for not 100% being right. So I have to see world in black and white. During hybrid warfare, every citizen is involved. It means that every institution, your neighbor can become a weapon of your enemy because he was influenced by propaganda, and he is spreading this propaganda to other neighbors, so he's affecting your defensive capacities. So I believe all Western citizens should be aware that it's not only democratic mechanism to protect themselves, that nobody will decide for them, that their role is also crucial to participate, to understand the values they fight for, and to be very active in this fight against the totalitarian regime. Because what Russia is proposing, it's not a protection of Russian language. No, they don't care about it so much. And even not much about the promotion of Russian world. They are promoting totalitarian values. And in the fight between values, there is no compromise possible. Western world was used very much for win-win game, yeah, but everybody wins. But in terms of totalitarianism and democracy, totalitarianism cannot be treated as win-win game, because here you are negotiating your values, and if you are stepping down with your values, so you are loser already. So you have to see it maybe as a lose-lose game, but you have final win if you care about the people, human rights, and other values which you believe are important for Western world.
Thank you, Taras. So, as you said, we are living in a world which is definitely black and white. Sometimes it's definitely black and white, but we live in an environment where Russians are pretty effective because they do not want that we should believe all this stuff on conspiracy websites or on fake news sites. They just want to make everything possible, and I think it's true. Like Comrades of Good is saying very brilliantly in one sentence. So they are very successful in that. We can talk a lot about that, but what we can do, next slide. So we have to make some action, and okay, we can. The simple answer is okay. We have to, if they straight fake news, we have to show it's live, proof, evidence, but it's not enough because if you are talking about fake news, now they're spreading very fast, very quickly, they're very effective. When it takes time when you need to verify, and the time you take for verifying, so many thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people have seen this fake news and they believe that. So your response is already too late. And even in the United States campaign, we have seen sometimes the fake news were much more spread than real news. So what to do with that? And as Victor said already, the public needs to be more intelligent, smart, need to be more educated. So, for example, in Slovakia, what we have done recently, in my newspaper, we have made a special monthly magazine about lies, conspiracy theories, and inside there is a textbook manual for high school students. It's like a tool for teachers how to teach young generation to think critically, to have critical thinking, and not to believe, as mentioned in Finland, it's very good, the country in that really thinks what kind of source you are using, how to find that this picture is actually not Syrian migrant, but some pictures 5 years older from other country, and all that stuff which these fake news are using. So you can teach people to think and to find by themselves. So the ideality will be a situation when you will have critical thinking mass of people who will understand that this is stupid bullshit. I shouldn't believe that. So education is very important, and it's a way. For example, in our post-Soviet countries, it's not so easy as in Finland because we used to live in many decades. We need some reform, so you cannot wait for Ministry of Education that it will prepare some textbooks on propaganda. It will take 10 years, maybe our ministry will prepare something. But if there is nothing, we have to do it by ourselves. So this is one example. And the last one slide. You can ridiculize the fake sites. For example, recently a very smart move has been done in Czech Republic. One journalist made a fake story about a chemical attack in Syria. He completely invented anything. No, serious, no. And he was very successful that he planned his story in one of the very successful fake news sites in Czech Republic. It's called Parliament English. It's really influential. Please do not ignore fake sites because they sometimes have much bigger reach than serious media. But what happened? That Parliament English, they took with everything this fake story and published, and then they were ridiculized that they took everything. So it was proof that you can say anything and it will be published on these kind of sites. So you can ridiculize the people. For example, there are many Facebook groups which use the sarcasm and humor in demystification and so on. So it's now time for the US from the news because this is the country which is pretty active in that kind of hybrid war. They realize that even after the war in Georgia, because you can now also send some questions if you would like to ask something. I really admire that your approach in your country, in Estonia, in Latvia, in Lithuania, because in my country, for example, some experts, they already recognize that we have a threat. But from politicians, I almost never hear. Okay, we now have a quite good Protestant president, but president is it's not a man with big power. It's a prime minister, And our Prime Minister rather go for a dinner with Putin than to talk about Russian threat. So it's a problem. So we will talk later with Richard about our complicated situation, and politicians in my country don't understand it. But in your country, they understand it. So my question is very simple. What kind of measures they took already to fight with this environment?
Actually, in order to talk about the measures, we need to understand what is the situation and what are the challenges actually, because it's a part of the response. First of all, I need to touch this question: how related is information warfare and cyber? Yeah, and okay, how related it is? And I actually like Russian strategic documents, yeah, because they often portray themselves in those documents as the big victims, for example, of power revolution or informational attacks. But in general, they describe by what they are doing by themselves. And a good example of how related is cyber and stalking issues. We had a story in 2015 when the website of our Ministry of Defense was hacked, and there was the fake news about how NATO, during the exercises, is training to attack Kaliningrad region. So I think it's pretty clear. And I would even mention the question of stolen identities, of big data, and many other issues which could arise. So, actually, in Lithuania, we don't need to explain to anyone what is information warfare. Yeah, but you need to, I don't know, to take attention. Sometimes I would say that sometimes our decision makers and the population could be even tired because there is so much information on this topic, yeah, and so a lot of the developments are going on in this field. But what the Russians are doing? Actually, both similar to our countries and different. First of all, it's a long tradition. Some say from Cold War, active measures, yeah, but maybe even from Comintern times. So there's really a serious experience in this field. When we talk about the messages, of course, what we talk about all states. States which are failing or almost failed, immigration, economic collapse, the integration to the European Union was unsuccessful. What's next? Energy projects, energy independence is a traditional topic. History, the nations of fascists, Nazis, Holocaust topic. You know that in some countries, just last year, the books were published about the Holocaust. Very similar in the structure by the local authors, but this topic is also heavily used. And the latest trend which we can see is NATO presence. NATO build up, as they call in our region. Once again, victimization, that we are victim of this build-up. But those and a few examples, actually, what we are doing. Maybe you have heard that 1 month ago there was the fake news about German soldiers from the NATO battalion that they raped some teenage girl in small Lithuanian town, and some of our officials received even the letters which stated that, but of course it was a fake news. Another news related to this topic, that the head of the German battalion was actually, in fact, a Russian agent. There was even a photo of him, which was forged in the Red Square with his family, but actually the photo was of French astronaut and his family standing in the Red Square. So it's okay, it was that way. How about the channels? No, everything. Television, Facebook groups. We have here slide, yeah? So, but you know that it's very easy to, for example, to write as Prime Minister of Georgia, yes, or representatives of some think tank, yeah, some interesting question,
But even more interesting is partisan marketing is some web portals where you have a lot, considerable share of the comments and they are actually produced in Russia, in Albino or by local producers, yes, but anyway, in the most cases, it's even if it's in Lithuanian language, the messages are pretty clear, yeah. Don't spend money on defense. We are, struggling. Both not NATO occupants and many other topics which may influence. How efficient they are? It's a very broad discussion. If you take the opinion polls, you can see that it's very mixed. Because support for NATO, for example, 84% in Lithuania. European Union 65. NATO presence 73. And at least half of the population know that the information warfare is going on. So, but on the other hand, the people, for example, who regularly watch Russian TV, they think that it's the best is guilty in the Ukraine. So the question of information bubbles where the people are sitting somewhere inside, it's another question. Ukraine, you know that language, there is no language barrier. In Lithuania, the situation is 50-50 because young generation is not speaking and understanding Russian anymore. That's why we are coming where we see Sputnik news in Lithuanian is coming, but not very successful. They struggle to find the journalists who will be ready to work for them. It means that there is some level of awareness. Yes, nobody wants to participate in such kind of projects. So what we're doing, a lot of stuff actually. From banning TV channels, you know that the FDR, at that point, I think was banned already for a third time for 3 months. Latvians also have done that. But it's not banned because we don't like it. It's banned because there were some messages that both states want to attack Russia. No, some kind of war propaganda, very all clean one. Not something, on the gray zone. So, but you know that this is really straightforward, yes, so it's easy to find. Another thing, education, rising the level of awareness. And it's not only governmental efforts, it's also NGOs, some groups in the Facebook, a lot of lectures in the schools, organizations, municipalities, a lot of articles deconstructing some kind of face. So this also one of the measures. But even more important is not to mirror Russia here, yes, because it's very easy to make some kind of duel, yeah. Russia's messages have both strengths and weaknesses, yeah. On what they are working. Not Russia creating far-right parties in Europe, or Trump. Rust Belt was not created by Russia, but they are using tectonic shifts, yeah. And the distance between some ruling political parties, which are slow to adjust to the changes, and the population opinions, what we see in the case of the United States and Europe. And of course, Russians are coming. But on the other hand, what can they provide in exchange? What kind of product? They have no success story. They are not Singapore, to be honest, yes? Not even Malaysia. They have $4 trillion and so problematic, yes? On the other hand, they provide a mission. You know, it's very good to be on the, bright side, yeah, to fight against Mordor and some kind of struggling society, yes. So, what is the core purpose of your life, yeah? Could be the purpose of the life of the European Union citizen to become more competitive. What do you think? Economic competitiveness, yeah? Better quality human resources. I wouldn't be so sure, but to fight for some kind of values, yes, to be the force of the good. Yes. another offer. Yes, and here I want to stop and give you.
Thank you, Andreas. I would like to respond with some questions. The first one, excellent one. Yes, there are a lot of examples. That even that when we, maybe you remember when all these fake news sites, conspiracy websites started, you had a feeling that they are winning because it's usual that people like we are normally we do not go on these web forums and do not read. Personally, I do not like debates under articles because most of them they are overcrowded by real hate and sometimes you don't want to spare your time with that. But when lots of things and individuals, bloggers, journalists, we started confronting these fake sites with fact checking and we were writing it about a lot. The myth of successful campaign of fakers and was pretty diminished. So the people started to feel it's good to be active, it's good to be safe. If somebody sees that somebody is lying, then they start to be more open people. Then we started to even, with many tools, you can confront these people who, for example, you can follow the money where they have these websites. And what's interesting, there's the second question about Ukraine fascists. And I would like to say that what Russia is incredibly and is pretty dangerous. That they blame Ukraine for fascists, but if you see who are the people behind these fake sites, the conspiracy sites, they are very well connected with fascists, real fascists. For example, in my country, we have unfortunately after last elections, fascists in parliament. They have about 10%. They're normal fascists, no doubt. I can call them like that because they deny Holocaust. They spread fear, they spread hate towards any races. They hate Muslims people, they hate Romans people, everything like that. It's really concentrated elements in this body, but it's quite difficult to abolish them because they try to make it, in legal way. So still your democracy, you cannot just easily stop the party. But what you can do is to follow them a lot, react on that, and for example, with help of Ukraine hackers, recently there was it was published the communication of Mr. Usovsky. He's from Belarus, and he was working for one Russian oligarch, and he was doing many campaigns in B4 countries, in Balkan countries, the name of these oligarchs not here. But then what we found when we started to read these emails, it was excellent for us, because then we realized that how Russians are pretty effective. It's much more than website and fake news. That they have really people who are making a lot of stuff, a lot of bad stuff. For example, we realized that in Slovakia we had several demonstrations against NATO. And then we realized that this guy, working for the Russian oligarch, was paid, or was paying these people there on demonstrations. And he even said to his oligarch, look, this organization, these demonstrations, I was organizing them. Please give me some money so I can spread anti-NATO, anti-EU propaganda in EU states. And he was giving money for it. So that was for us like really something that it's not that we are making analysis, it's evidence. So you can see payments, you can see the open aim of these people to destruct our republic. They really want to go to Slovakia without NATO. And they can be successful. It's very dangerous because it's not like here in Georgia. You had a referendum and it was very clearly that there was said that you would like to be part of NATO. But regarding Slovakia, it's not as simple. If there will be a really strong propaganda effort, they can somehow shape public opinion because NATO is not so popular in our country because there never been really huge debate. It's also responsibility of our politicians that they do not speak about values of NATO. They almost feel ashamed that we are not NATO. It's very sad that I have to say that, but it's like that. Not in your country. Other countries that you are proud and you see the help of your allies. So that's a big problem. So I try, maybe Carlos would like to react on it that What about Azov and all these ultra-right people in fights in Donbass? So how to deal with that? Shortly, please.
To be short, taking into account the Russian measures, for example, I could be easily called fascist because I'm a Ukrainian speaking person, but I'm totally well my country and for its independence. I don't see any common sense between Ukraine and Russia, so I'm definitely a fascist. And regarding Azov and right sector, this is very useful for Russia for Western propaganda because they always proclaim that there are some group of fascists in Ukraine, and what do you mean fascists? Nobody knows, yeah? So I have never had any announcements that Ukrainians are the best nations, that all the rest should be sent out of Ukraine, even Russians or I don't know, who are Jews or whatever. So from no one. Maybe I don't read enough of news from right sector and other. So I haven't seen. I've just seen some pictures of some guys with fascist signs on the body, and that's always the moment. But I believe that if there are some any of this kind, so they should be sent out of one immediately, yeah? And if anybody is stating openly about exclusiveness of Ukrainian nations against the others, so they should be sent out of the army immediately, not depending on what they are fighting against Russia. This is very useful tool for propaganda, and indeed, I just believe for Western countries it's necessary to show that in Ukraine we have no influence of fascists because we have non-fascists in the parliament. Maybe I'm mistaken. Comparing even to democratic countries, we have no party declaring about exclusiveness of Ukrainians and etc. what fascists can mean. How to tackle this propaganda is to show what Ukrainian real political life is. Yes, there are some corruption issues, there are reform-minded people, but nothing to do with that. So there are many people who are going to protect their country and are ready to die for the country, but not killing the others because they are different. From Russian side, it's definite that they can kill the others who are thinking the other way. And I believe that it can be called fascist and we have to fight against it. And one more thing is how to fight against fake news. I believe it's useless to fight against fake news because within 1 minute I can produce 20 fake news and you will spend a lot of hours to find that I'm wrong here. So I believe that the main thing is to fight the source of this fake news. In Ukraine, maybe it's not very democratic. In Ukraine, there are also prohibition of Russian channels. Yeah? But can channels be called informational media if they are constantly producing propaganda, fake news, and lies? I believe they are not media already. They must not exist. And Western countries should also have approach to that because if something is repeatedly done and it's affecting their people, so I believe there should be found a way to prohibit them to transmit all these lies because you will not tackle this each lie separately.
Thanks very much. I just want to say very shortly one thing. The situation now is complicated, but I think it's much more complicated because the methods used by Russians are now used not only by Russians, but are even by Western players or in Turkey. So I would say, for example, in our region or in the United States, you mentioned that the influence of this fake news there is incredible. So I think we have to deal with them. We cannot ignore them because they influence a lot of people. It's unfortunately we have in a new era where social networks are pretty influential, and we have to find proper answer. And I forgot to tell one example of successful campaign against fake news recently in Slovakia. There was a very I mentioned when we tried to recognize fake news. We had there is a site called Zombie. It means die. And it's very black humor site, which is making jokes about fake news. And what happened that because of some fascists, Facebook closed down this website, and because there were many demands on Facebook to close down fascist websites, and they were doing nothing, and then they closed the sites before legalizing fascists. So in control way. What happened after that? that it provoked such a reaction in my country that now the personal Facebook pages of our members of parliament from the Specialist Party are banned. So you can be affected. You can be, and it was a civic campaign, it was not official, non-governmental. For example, now, fascist, I would say it's old-fashioned now. It's Soros, of course, and now Soros is responsible for everything bad. So I feel it in my country, I feel it in my neighboring country, in Hungary, for example, where it's excellent university, and because it was founded by Soros, now they want to cancel that, and it's not Russian propaganda, it's their own domestic propaganda of government of Viktor Orban. So it's very complicated world we are living in. We have to be very thinking with very complex, and I would say please take seriously these fake people who make fake news because they can make a huge impact. And I would say that it's a big challenge for me as a journalist to see it from mainstream or so-called mainstream media, because we are now labeled like we are. For example, in the United States, what was the people around Trump were saying about media that they are blue and press, the same term which Hitler described media. And now we are described in a way, the serious media. So it's a very complicated situation. And then Victor wanted to say something short, and then we go to John.
Yeah. Thank you. And at the beginning, a short disclaimer. This will be my personal opinion because the National Cybersecurity Center that I work for is a neutral, very technical bureau. We do encryption, we do standards, but we do not do content, and we do not, talk about fake news from the political, strategic perspective. So I believe that we see very few victories over fake news because debunk fake news is not a victory. We debunk all the fake news. Sooner or later, they will be debunked. But they leave a trace in people. And, it's sort of boring, always, the debunking. You see the fake news that is shocking, 400,000 people, on the border of Ukraine, a 3-year-old kid that was crucified in Slavyansk. And, they just run through the people, run through the population. And then you have the debunking news, It was not 400 people, it was not here, it was there, it was according to the United Nations statistics, whatever. It's boring. So the only victory over fake news is when the fake news does not catch up. And we are again at the education. So I don't think there are technical solutions to this. People have to reject the fake news right at the beginning and say, it's so weird.
Sorry for interrupting, you have a question.
Oh yeah, I will respond to the chat. I will. Now, just a short note on Nazis in Ukraine. And I have Italians in my family, so I see the divide between fascism and Nazism. It's two very distinct political ideologies. So I think that was stuck, at least in the Russian public, because in Russian information theory, also you have the theory of reflexive control. Now, when you want to shift this decision-making process of your opponent, and you put information in that decision process, in that machine, to shift him in some direction, the most effective disinformation you can give him is the disinformation that he already believes. So there is a latent thinking of Russians about Ukrainian Nazism, and in this field, this is a very effective fake news that I believe will be stuck and cannot be countered by counter fake news or by some attack. It can be only countered by a positive narrative. Now, to my questions over there. The botnets. Yes, botnets are a huge problem, and yes, we should be aware of them. Yes, all the devices that are connected now, most of them have huge problems because they were simply not designed with security on mind. They were designed with low costs on mind. So all these baby cameras and so on are in bad shape basically. And sometimes they are not even ready to be repaired because some of them have the firmware just wired in and it cannot be changed by any update. So they will just continue being dangerous until they are in operation. Actually my bureau and other our colleagues all over the world, we are also thinking how to counter the DDoS attacks. There are private companies that offer very good solutions. So it will mitigate the threat, but it will not go away. And in this topic, I have to stress one thing. There is no reason why your fridge should be online. There is absolutely no reason why your juice maker should be online. There is no reason why you should have cameras all over your place looking at you and microphones listening to you. People have to value their privacy, and they have to understand that if they put a camera to put on their baby, they also have to make sure that this information does not go anywhere else and it is well protected. But the private sector, like Kaspersky and others, are already taking care of this. And then I saw another one.
So, you also want to say something, and then we have to move.
I don't want to take time from our speakers. You touched this issue of influence here and how they try to destroy our resilience of our societies and the countries in general. So you must understand that they are very flexible. Yeah, it's not only far right they are using. They are using all possible conflicts and gaps in the society between rich and poor. Yeah. Social divisions, far left, Mirkus professionalism, Antifa, so also ecology movements, everything. So sometimes it's oversimplified and it's just like right spectrum or some kind of nationalists, but it's every possibility. So that's my.
Another question for Ambassador Riza. Your country has been under attack, has been in war in 2008, and there is like thinking that if West would react much better after that, Crimea maybe wouldn't happen. But now maybe we are speaking about Ukraine. There is a war, and we have impressions that the West is not doing enough. So, what's your experience? What's your analysis of that? Did something changes after war in Georgia, or took somebody lesson, at least in your country?
Thank you. I will start with the question. Imagine you went to dance with a partner, and you try to do tango, and your partner does judo. How long would it take you to realize there's something wrong with it? Or even a better example, you went to the floor figure skating, and your partner does hope and tries to stop you. How long would a normal person take to realize that maybe the partner that you hope to be partner with has different goals? I think this is an analogy of what happened between the West and Russia in the last many years, not just recent years. And the reason is that probably the West was not listening. And once they did listen, they believed all the propaganda part. Because if they cared, suppose you know very little about Russia's nature, Soviet nature, and the nature of the people who came to power and who are now your opposite numbers in the Kremlin. But if you care to listen what Putin had to say in Munich, for instance, I mean, you would already question many things about the feasibility of such a partnership that the West wanted to have. And no one blames the West. It's perfectly normal for democratic societies whose purpose is, you were speaking about like competitive kind of advantage economic. Well, Western societies are based on the idea of providing better quality of life to their citizens. I mean, it's a general idea. So why wouldn't Western societies want to be partners with Russia, which they perceive as part of their civilization, as being part of similar civilization at least? But once again, you have to know very little and watch very kind of to be distracted from what Russia has been doing for a number of years, and then what Russia has been saying very directly to you since Putin came to power. Well, Georgia, I'm in a kind of awkward position I have to hold myself from saying, I told you so on so many occasions, and kind of give you the websites and links to my interviews in 2008, in which I say directly that Georgia, if you think the Georgian war is just an instance of Russia and Hothead Saakashvili not being on the same page and simply, okay, maybe Russia and Georgia simply have very unfortunate kind of tradition of having terrible relations. But if we just look the other way, everything will be fine. I mean, and I'm saying that once you look the other way, the next time the collision between Russia and the West, which Russia has chosen, I know you don't want this conflict, but Russia, and this is our quote, which I didn't want to give, but Russia is at the collision course with the West. And the longer it takes for the West to react, deeper inside the Western territory, this collision will occur. And it's not just Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine was an immediate kind of prediction, and there were many people who said that Ukraine would be next. And I'm surprised that it took actually so many years after Georgia for Ukraine to occur. But the real conflict now is inside the West. And if someone thinks that it's the liberal globalist West that Russia doesn't like, but it does like Le Pen's France and Trump's America, I mean, this is another idiotic self-delusion. Because how long would it take for someone to observe that on the one hand, Russia bombs to Bolivia and razes to the ground Syrian citizens' towns and kind of marshals Syrian refugees to the West, and at the same time finances the anti-immigrant forces in Europe, right? So the problem, as I said, in my view, is the just very poor connection with the reality in the West, and in the Western far right, another illusion that it is the liberal West that Russia dislikes, but they are Russia's dominants. This is something that you will be disappointed in very soon. And what we should have seen a long time ago was that Russia's hard power actions in Georgia and its neighborhood were a very good indication of what Russia was up to. I'll correct, Victor mentioned the DDoS attacks that preceded the military attack on Georgia. Well, actually, there was another interesting incident just a few days before the August war. There was an explosion on the Bakut-Lysychansk pipeline on the Turkish territory, and many attributed this to another PKK or some sort of terrorist attack. Well, guess what? If you look carefully, you would discover that there was no PKK attack, most probably, that it was caused by cyber attack on the pumping station. All right? So, the evidence was there, but I can understand why many analysts, decision makers, politicians in the West would not listen to Georgians in 2008. But Georgians were not alone. There were many authoritative voices in the West. In 2007, our good friend Edmund published this book called The New Cold War, and it was denounced as kind of fear-mongering and this and that, and many others. And now we have people who've been writing about the post-truth world. This is another problem, that with the Russian propaganda reaching everywhere, every country, countering is very difficult because Russia's propaganda aims not only just spreading false and making people believe in fake news, but in devaluing the value of news as such. And this is a real problem. So dealing with the Russian propaganda instruments in democratic countries will always be hard without kind of challenging the degree of democracy and freedom of media. But one has to realize that we are at war. You call it hybrid, you call it the new Cold War, whatever, but it is a Cold War. It is a war, it is a confrontation which needs to be taken in adequate way. You cannot tango when your partner does judo.
Yeah, so there is, for example, a practical question, very good one again, on Facebook, that if social media should be fined, if somebody wants to address on this question, from my point of view as a journalist, I'm not in favor to be very repressive, because, okay, media or all kinds of, they have to be responsible. But I think really abolish them and destroy and cancel it is not a good approach, because they produce something which a certain amount of people would like to read, always. And if you make them martyrs, you also risk something. So you have to be very careful. But of course, for example, better than fines, I would propose that if they spread some lies, they have to then the same reach, they have to take correction, they have to apologize. So the readers will see that they are spreading lies. For me, it's much better than to have a fine, because you can have money. If you pay and you spread lies, it's much easier for them to pay to spread lies. That's my opinion. Somebody wants to add something?
I may be on Sandra's question, but my answer is no, because I think if you, and now this is a fake quote, it is signed to Benjamin Franklin, but he never actually said it. It's if you want to sacrifice your liberty for your security, you do not deserve none of them, and you will lose both. I think if we walk this way, it will bring us in very uncomfortable place, where it is the state that will decide what is fake, what is not, what is true, what is not. And I think, again, that the only way is to educate people. I also wanted to react on the second one, and that is how should intelligence agencies react to hybrid threats, and whether they should disclose people or not. I think that it depends on the seriousness of the threat, and if the threat touches the very national interests of the country, or it touches the possibility of a change of political system or of a huge impact on society, yes, they will do it. They will maybe do it unofficially, they will maybe do it through journalists or other channels, but yes, definitely, they will do it, and they should do it because it is their role to safeguard the democratic system.
The question is if they are doing it. Maybe I can ask all of you in the panel for the same question, because it's also a very good question. If your Secret Service already acknowledged Russian propaganda as a threat, and if they are doing something, for example, our Secret Service, in their report, there is a one sentence, very general. It's very cautious not to offend Moscow. Okay, they acknowledge there is a problem very carefully, and please do not speak any more about that. And recently, finally, after I think it took more than a year after that, Ministry of Interior in our country said that okay, we have to react, so we will in our Department of Police of Computer Criminality, we will have 12 people, and they will deal with all that stuff, extremism, propaganda, and it will be cool. Okay, you can imagine how it will look like, how effective this unit with 1,000 people would be. It's very sketchable. But there are examples of countries like Czech Republic. For example, they have not one sentence, but several paragraphs. They have arrested hacker recently, Russian hacker. There are some efforts. So there's something going on in Czech Republic, no?
Yeah, but that's police, it's not us. We do the standards, we're a very technical bureau.
What in Georgia? Is the security service doing something with Russian flag?
I'm not sure it's still happening, because most of the ones that have been dealing with Russian cybersecurity or security in general have been either jailed or something happened to them. The problem, in my view, is the very, I would say, what government would describe careful approach, and I would describe careless approach, which means that let's not irritate Russia, let's not give them cause to be angry at us, and everything will be fine. And for the last 5 years nearly, we've been exercising a policy which our government thinks is more pragmatic than the one and the previous government. And I'm afraid the result is exactly the same. As people are dying every day in Ukraine, well, almost on a daily basis, Georgians are being abducted from the occupation line, regardless of this new pragmatic policies. The de facto annexation of Abkhazia proceeds according to the plan. Then we have not seen any real results of milder, softer, warmer kind of approach from Georgia. And this is a danger of being in this self-delusion that if you treat Russia nicely while it continues its aggressive policy and it acts according to a very clear plan, I mean, that its treatment of you will somehow change. And this is what Ukrainians should bear in mind. No pro-Russian government will change Russia's main goals. And this is what we have to bear in mind, what are Russian goals. And this is to prevent the existence of a real independent state, regardless of their orientation, by the way. The war in Ukraine started not with the Maidan revolution or events in Crimea and in Donbass, but with Yanukovych's decision to sign the association agreement with the European Union. And when you see why Russia sees it as a threat to its interests, then you will understand Russian goals. Even under pro-Russian corrupt leader, Russia wasn't able to accept, wasn't prepared to accept a more advanced Ukraine with better economic opportunities. Russia will be the first to benefit from it. But yet again, if you see that Russia wants to be surrounded by failing states, states where Russia may allow limited sovereignty but not real independence, this is what should be the basis of your policy.
Okay, Leonidas, shortly, and Klaus can say, then Richard, and you will have.
Because Baltics were mentioned, we just, as you know, for example, Ukrainian intelligence services are publishing the whole threat assessment annually, and I would say that it's really very open. Sometimes it feels like a good detective. So Estonians also are doing pretty open one with short names, photograph pictures, and I think it helps for the awareness of the population actually, because in many cases the purpose is to show some kind of structure, yes, some kind of patterns. In principle, I think that this fake news in general is not as big problem as it sometimes is portrayed, because in many cases there is common structure, and as you do with your 10 manual for the school pupils, yeah, I think that it's possible to teach the population what to look for, to structure. What was the source? I don't know, reputable, not reputable, many actually things. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I would like to mention that, to my mind, education, as you mentioned, is very important factor. And
our university service is well educated.
Sorry?
University service is well educated. Yeah, they understand it.
But what do you mean? How to work with civilians?
No, I was saying, from perspective of the intelligence, they are well aware of what to know.
Yeah. And even that I believe, because you know, after Yanukovych we had no security structures at all, we had no army at all. For many years it was affected by Russian agents, and indeed it was a big surprise to Russia that the country did survive, despite the absence of any security, and because of active civil society people who managed to create immediately security structures here. Still there are many problems because of Soviet past, because there are many Soviet approaches, and I do believe that many non-security institutions are here important, but mainly work with population, you mentioned, with education, etc., etc. But still Russia demonstrate very dangerous and very popular to people approach comparing to democratic countries. And it's well seen on internet, in social networks. It means that they want to restore Soviet Union. And you know why? Because Soviet Union was great superpower. And you as individual was part of this great superpower. And you had to do nothing. You didn't have to succeed in your social life, in economic life. You just were as such a part of something very big and powerful. And the main message is that the whole world was afraid of you. Of Soviet Union, and they want to bring it back, this superpower, and then want to feel a part of it. It's very attractive concept because you have to do nothing personal. You can sit on sofa, not working, just getting some social assistance, and you are great already. You know, and the democracy is providing something quite different. You have to work hard to succeed. So how to tackle it? Well, it's very long and hard-working process of working with ordinary people who are not intelligent as we are, but who have to be worked with. Otherwise, they will become a part of this territorial thinking.
Thank you very much. Richard, now floor is yours. If I can follow your remarks about sitting on sofas, because I have the impression that we in Slovakia are sitting in sofas. So maybe I'm unfair, I'm biased. What is your opinion? Maybe you can fact check this. It would be better.
My mic doesn't work. Okay, now it's got too many. Yeah. It says request you can maybe should turn on your mic. Thanks a lot. Actually, this panel has been fascinating so far. I hope I can add something to that. Before that, I would like to ask our Georgian colleague here. Are you familiar with the webpage factcheck.de? Yeah. Okay. So as you are then probably aware, this is part of a global fact-checking. Maybe some of you are hearing. In that case, you are happy. I'm doing promotion for you. This is a part of global fact-checking movement, I would say. And I worked for about 5 years for a Slovak fact-checking organization, which was called Demagog, which then spread to the Czech Republic to Poland. Maybe Victor is aware of that, maybe some other of you. So there was a question over there, what can we do, to tackle fake news? I noticed the previous two speakers were quite pessimistic. They said we cannot do much. They mentioned some problems. I totally agree that there is no way that we can, in the real time, debunk everything what is coming out. This is just not possible, not humanly possible. There are some ways how we can deal with that. And actually, so there is this global fact-checking network, and one of the things this network is discussing and even trying to implement is some artificial intelligence, some technology solutions which would be capable of basically fact-checking at least some statements automatically with the technology. So I'm not a technology person. I'm not sure whether this is possible. I'm a bit skeptical that everything can be automatically fact-checked like this. But I do think that if at least something can be done in this way, that's already a good thing. So imagine that no matter whether it's politicians or a media or anything, you would immediately know, see at least part of it, whether it's correct or whether there are some fake news in it. I think when we are discussing about all these issues, how to tackle it and so on, we should differentiate between the different time frameworks. Many of you were mentioning that the only way how we can solve it is awareness, education, and so on. We were discussing about the intelligence state measures. I think we really should distinguish between the short-term measures, short-term tools, and the long-term tools. So, for example, the 5 years of my experience working in the fact-checking, it was sometimes frustrating, but then sometimes it was surprisingly rewarding. Such as, for example, when I meet a politician and he would tell me that he's really afraid when he has a public discussion because he knows we're going to fact-check him or her, and that's why they prepare much more, and they are really making sure they are saying the correct facts. We only fact-check maybe now about 20% or even less of the public discussions in Slovakia, but politicians are already aware there is something like this.
Another thing is we rely, and the organization still rely heavily on interns. Maybe we had more than 100, 200, probably more than 200, 300 interns. All of these are young people who were taught how to approach a news critically, how to look for sources and so on. And these friends, of course, these people, of course, have friends and so on. The media, such as the NDN, are using our findings. So maybe it's not the most important whether you can debunk everything, but the whole idea of thinking about statements, about findings critically. So this webpage is one, or this is one way how you can add momentum into fighting the fake news. And basically, I think there is no one solution what we can do about fake news. We should do things which are effective in the long term, in the short term, and I think there are at least 4 dimensions at which we can be active. So one thing is state, right? So the state should provide, for example, for institutions such as dictators. Many states do that, such as Czech Republic. Many states are not that active in it, such as Slovakia. So I think this is certainly one thing which states can do. Another thing is we need to have good, transparent, effective media which are credible. So in this case, I think in Slovakia, we do have some very quality newspaper which remain independent. They also face the issue that some parts of society don't see them as credible. They see them as biased. This is a big issue today. We should be aware of it. We should try to do something about that. But I do believe that quality media is one effective response. So that's the second dimension. The third dimension, I think, are the companies. Some of you mentioned Facebook here. Mirek mentioned it, but he didn't mention what happened after the issue with the closing down the web page, the fan page Zomri, which was making fun of the fascists. You said that. So basically, Facebook closed down over 20 pages, main communicating channels of the fascists, either persons or the organization. And I mean, we may say this is a little bit drastic measure. If a state does this kind of measure, it would be heavily criticized for affecting freedom of speech. Actually, the fascists criticize Facebook, but basically Facebook is a private company which can, in a way, freely decide what they do and what they don't do. And they're more effective in this. So I think companies do have their own standards which they should implement, and they can be faster and more effective in this. So that's the third dimension. And the fourth dimension, which is the civil society. This is what I think we are part of, the fact-checking project. This is what happens when we go to schools, which, for example, Mirek does with education, with the critical thinking. Also, this has to be done both immediately, but in the long term. At the end, we need to have education which teach how to think critically, which teach how to use the modern modern technologies, because this is something which is changing very rapidly. And I'm aware to some extent of how Slovak education reacted to that, and it didn't react in any way. So I think the education must take this into account. And the last thing which I mentioned, we need to combine things. We have to have, of course, there is military aspect in these political international relations. Actually, these kind of things, why people believe in fake news, why people believe in conspiracy, it has a lot to do with sociology, with psychology. Not sure how many sociologists and psychologists are here. I think the response to this must be combined in a way. Again, not one recipe, but a combination at more dimensions and with more approaches. I will finish here. Thank you.
There are 2 things I would like to really touch about these panelists. I would like to ask them, I'm quite interested, because it was after last year in the United States visible, and we fear, I have an impression that is going on in Europe is that how Russia is trying to influence our elections. That we have a liberal system which is very vulnerable towards these activities, and we have seen in the United States. So now there will be on Sunday election in France. You have seen a lot of Russian sites on Russian sites in France which were spreading fake news about Emmanuel Macron or positive things about Fillon. Fillon is like more moderate version of Le Pen, but with very similar views. So maybe there will be second round, Le Pen and Fillon, and Russia will be winner. Of course. So my question, I don't know who would like to respond first, but how to have our elections free and fair and secure from this Alex abroad, from abroad.
All right, first of all, I think the people who would willingly accept the help from Russian sponsored or Russian media should be directly labeled at once. I occasionally look at RT, not with huge pleasure, but occasionally. The last few things that I've seen was the demonization of Macron for no apparent reason, you would say, because what Russia may have against Macron. But once he emerged as an alternative to two right and far right candidates, I mean, Russia got furious. And then you had Marine Le Pen visiting the Kremlin, etc., etc. The candidates who accept such help from Russia should be labeled as the Russian candidates. I think this would be one of the things. For instance, in Georgia, the way Russian propaganda and Russian support works is not to say directly that the candidate is pro-Russian, or a media would not necessarily push pro-Russian fake news. In Georgian version, pro-Russian candidates usually sound as ultra-nationalists. It's the ones who claim that it's not just Russia that occupies Georgian territory, it's also Turkey and Azerbaijan. Well, they refer to 1921 borders of Georgia, regularly kind of omitting the Armenian part, because Georgian territory was actually distributed in Upland 41 to Turkey, and Azerbaijan. But when people start talking about Turkey and Azerbaijan also being occupiers of Georgia, you should immediately know that this is Russia talking. This is Russia trying to distract your society from the real problem of occupation of internationally recognized territory and move them into a conflict with the only two strategic neighbors that you have. So, once again, labeling, naming the people who willingly accept such help would be the first thing to do.
Yeah, you asked about how to tackle the involvement in the elections in the West, especially. I think there is, I see a few problems, but one I want to mention is we would often say we don't understand why people in UK, in the US voted the way they did, why there is such a big popularity for the extremists in France or in Slovakia, which we would say, economically speaking, Slovakia has been doing well in the last 20 years. The other countries as well. So how come that there is so much of unsatisfaction? But I think actually there is still the real world basis why people are unsatisfied, and that has something to do with the growing inequality. So while the average economy in Slovakia, but also of course UK, US and elsewhere is doing pretty well, there are really large sections of societies which are left behind. This was very much discussed in Slovakia after the elections, when we were all trying to find questions why some regions were voting for the fascist parties, and basically this was one of the findings, as far as I'm concerned, that just many people feel they are not participating in the success. So I think this is one long-term goal we have to make sure, especially in Western societies. Maybe it's different in Georgia, but in the West, these people who feel they're left behind by the mainstream, they try to find alternatives, and Russia is very happy to provide these kind of alternatives. And in a way, Russia is able to win in hearts and minds of these people, which is really interesting that we are not able of winning hearts and minds of people in Russia, and Russia is able of winning hearts and minds of people over in our regimes. And I'm very critical over here often over how we act. That we basically succeeded in having all Russians feeling we are against them.
Yep.
And I know Russians who live all their lives in Canada, in Australia, in free societies. They have great lives, and they also buy into Russian propaganda, and basically, Russia also won their hearts and minds. So how unsuccessful we are, if even these people who have this great experience with our living standards, even if they buy into these.
But it's the same with Turkish people. You know, for example, you know, in Belgium, Germany, they voted for. Okay, it's very tricky because the turnout was not as big as in Turkey, but you know, it's not Russian things. You know, it's
Yeah, just a footnote from what you said that you know they are able maybe to convince some of our people about the narrative, and we are not able to reach all of the Russian population. That is a systematic thing that we will not change because the amount of control over communication channels in Russia is much bigger than in Europe, and hopefully it will remain that way because we are not Russia. And if you have a look at how propaganda gets to the receiver, you begin with information, with news, then you have some formats of the information that will be text, video, that will be pictures. Then you have communication channels that you deliver with it. You deliver it to the recipient, and communication channels in Russia are pretty much controlled. Russia employ also like they employ heavy control systems over their networks. You maybe some of you heard of the SORM system. That is a system that evolved since the communism. It was for wiretapping telephones at the beginning, but now it evolved into full DPI system, deep packet inspection. So it is able to go inside packets and inside the data. So even the data flows in Russia are under control. And I very much believe that we don't want to walk that way because this is a fight we cannot fight, and we would have to sacrifice our basic liberties, basically.
Yeah, that is true. Just a short reaction. That is true. Of course, it's much more difficult to get our message to Russian people, and it's much easier for them to get it to our people. But it doesn't explain why Russians living abroad buy into that. Because these people supposedly should know that they have much better living standards, much better quality of life than in Russia. And we are not successful here. So even though we have all these problems, I think we should at least try to win hearts and minds of people in Russia. And I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and it's a pity. Maybe next time we challenge our organizers. I would like to ask them. Please invite some questions to the panel, some smartphone. Because it doesn't make sense to debate with some propagandists because it's a waste of time. But there are so many extremely smart and intelligent and brave people that it would be a pleasure to speak with them. So I hope maybe next year in Tbilisi. And my last question, if somebody wants to ask something and like this opportunity, is I would like to ask the panelists as a challenge for you and an opportunity to use your fantasy and analytical thinking, because there's a perception that Putin is not a good strategist, but he's just a tactician, but he always surprises us. So my question is, what do you think in near future can be surprise for us?
I always thought if I was right, and it was always very interesting for me case what would happen if I would try to challenge Article 5 of NATO. Being Putin, it would be very interesting for me to see what West will do, and against the nuclear state, nuclear power, against the possible buffer between West and China. Everybody is afraid to weaken. So to say, but your states are are very attractive to drive.
That's it. Please tell us if it's going to happen to your country. Sorry,
Of course, such scenarios are analyzed in our countries, and NATO battalions are not just because it's for fun, yeah. As you understand, the main purpose actually is to increase the level of deterrence. So the more difficult it will be to do something, the less will be to try. So equation is very simple here. So how successful
Can I propose an open answer to this? The only thing that would surprise me on part of Putin or any future Russian regime would be a genuine attempt to cooperate with the West. For the very simple reason that any Russian regime requires tension and confrontation, or at least a perception of confrontation, including with the West, for the reason of stability of internal stability of the regime. Imagine, I mean, why would Russians tolerate a thieving group of mostly incompetent people at the top of their government if the perception was not that these are the only barrier between these aggressive Western liberal fascist Jews attacking and ransacking their country. Sadly, this may be a very simplified picture, but more or less the picture that exists in the minds of many Russians, and why they are not corrupted by the benefits of Western lives. Well, look at the history, and look who are your heroes historically, who are the greatest models, and whose statues are erected in your countries, and whose statues you will see in Russia. If we had a Russian participant, I would ask them, could you please direct me to Alexander II's statue in Russia? The only Tsar who willingly, without any outside pressure, liberated the serfs, the absolute majority of Russian people, who were actually slaves, not just serfs. At the time, and this is what, for instance, many Americans do not realize, at the time when Americans went to a war with each other over the issue whether to have or not to have slaves, Russians were the slaves. And the Tsar who liberated them did not get any recognition. He got killed to start with, and then, actually, I know where his statue is, but it's not in Russia. It's in Helsinki. There is no film, movie, or novel, or anything, unlike for Ivan the Terrible, Stalin, Hitler, and many others. So this should tell you why, even with, well, it wasn't just freedom, and this is complicated. But even when many Russians are prepared to enjoy the Western standards of life, and even when most of the stolen money goes to Zurich, London, and other places, even when they send their daughters and sons to Western universities with top class, and their wives to the Duchess, which they fly over the Côte d'Azur in Kensington, well, they continue to cultivate this idea of West being something extremely terrible. And sadly, many Russians believe. And like I said, what would really surprise me is a genuine long-term attempt to cooperate with the West. Would be something straight to you.
Victor, your analysis of near future?
I will probably pass on this one. I know what to do. Like in terms of information security, we know what to do. We know what are the steps we should do. We should take in both technical and propaganda level. We will do them. And you know, it's true they are surprising us. And you know, and in war, if you lost initiative, you lost the war. So let's do it the other way around and surprise them one time.
So I hope French people will surprise us in a positive way, because I think the dynamics will be totally different. Imagine if the really will be president. It's really would be really big news for Europe, not much bigger than Trump, because then the forces around people like Erdogan, like Orban, Le Pen. There's a question about, for example, about values. Maybe I can also ask if we have a time for the last one. That because there was a question about human rights. That if we want to win in the hearts and minds, if it's West still standing behind these values. It's a very good question, because the last trend it's almost bad word to say that you are a human rights activist or you are for human rights. It's almost you are agent. You are like Soros agent or you are somebody bad now in our region. Unfortunately, it's you have to you speak much more about repression, about situation under control, and human rights are not very popular now. That's true. We can see in Hungary what's going on there and what EU is doing. What the response is. EU is very weak. So it's quite a good question. So are we still in our EU standing behind our values? It's for EU members question. So leave it that way.
I think this human values issue is very broad actually, because in principle I see the problem that the human rights in the last years is understood as very narrow, some narrow topics, yeah. But on the other hand, there are much more than human rights. And caring for those human rights in many cases would solve the questions with the Russian propaganda. We already have spoken about the gaps in the inequality, rising inequality. Is it human right to have the normal working conditions, for example? What do you think? But on the other hand, we see very little effort to work on them in this field. So and Russia actually is abusing this shortfalls. That's my comment.
Victor?
I think we're about to see, back to the information security that back to the topic of the panel, if we, and that's my field of expertise, if we start to cut our liberties, if we start to label all that are against us as Russian agents, and cut them from the communication, then we will betray our values. So it is a thing that is about to be seen in the foreseeable future. If the autocratic and technological solutions to the problems we have in the information sphere will or will not limit our liberties. And I think there is a strong movement that wants to go this direction. There is a strong call for the state to decide what is true and what is not, for the technological solutions that I think are on the way. So we have to stand firm and go through the education.
What is that? Can I as an aspiring country, can I just say that I think we have now all agreed that the values around which the European Union was built and the benefits that the Union has delivered, and they are enormous, should not be taken as granted, as indestructible. Great civilizations have fallen in history, and history doesn't always move towards progress. So I think the Europeans should take a great care of what they have, realize that it can be lost.
If I reinterpret this question as if we are 100% true to our human values and so on, of course the answer is no, we are not 100% true to those values. On the other hand, I think we are still globally and also historically extremely successful. I think what we've achieved is really a great thing. At the same time, we should not stop here. I totally agree that, for example, economic rights, which I mentioned before, that's one thing. But also political values, we don't apply them over the world equally. So we should continue working on that. I think it's still not too late. I don't think that we already started entered into decline, but it may happen. And what Victor said in the previous question about the surprise, I would very much hope that this time it would be our turn, that we surprise Russia, although I'm not totally sure that would happen.
So I think we reached our time. Thanks very much for your attention. Thanks very much for volunteering. As a last sentence, I have a recommendation for a book for you. If you If you were interested in this debate, I would recommend you to read a book, a new one from Timothy Snyder. It's called On Tyranny. It's a very short book, 20 lessons from the 20th century. And definitely you have to read this book. It's not a big book. Just read the content. And it's 20 lessons how to deal if you do not want that your country will change into authoritarian. As a citizen, as a man, what you should do. It's a very good book. And I would recommend it. And I would like to finish with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was unusual panel, quite interactive, very interesting. I personally learned a lot. Thank you, everyone. This is the final remarks. I won't make you to stay longer. Thank you for enduring these 2 days and for being with us. First of all, thank you, audience, for the interest and engagement. Big thanks to the panelists and moderators for their input and presentations. Thanks for International Visegrad Fund for making this conference possible. Of course, to our partners, Stratford and Richard and his wonderful team. And lastly, but not least, I would like to thank GFSS girls, of course, Katie, without whom the smooth functioning of this conference would not have been possible, and her team, Santa Mary, and of course, Zoma, who did not sleep for 2 nights to print here. Thank you, all of you, for your engagement, and I hope to see you next year.
I'll only say 2 things because Eka mentioned almost everything. So of course she didn't thank herself, so that's my job, and that's why I'm here. I would like to thank her for all her work and for helping us organizing the conference. Thank you very much. And I only repeat, I'll be very happy to be in touch with you also after today. I hope you enjoyed the conference. See you soon, at latest next year here.